when it comes to taking up for each other, we're brothers and sisters. So to lose a brother in the line of duty is really a terrible thing for anyone to have to go through.
A Beaumont police officer remembering a co-worker killed in the line of duty. Investigators say a suspect involved in a chase deliberately drove into Officer Bryan Hebert and his patrol car on Dallin Road.
And I'm Bill Leger outside of Beaumont Police Headquarters for a conversation with the man charged with leading the department in the wake of last night's tragic loss. We'll have a live report.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Ashley Gaston. Welcome to the Weekend Report. A Beaumont police officer who served a decade in the department has died, and a man accused of deliberately striking the officer and his patrol car at the end of a 7-minute chase is charged with capital murder. 36-year-old Beaumont officer Bryan Hebert joined the department in 2001. He had served as a correctional officer before he took the oath and became a member of the largest police department in the Golden Triangle. He is the 17th Beaumont officer to die in the line of duty since the 1880s. 30-year-old John Wesley Nero is the man investigators say aimed his car at Officer Hebert's patrol unit. Nero was injured in the collision that killed Officer Hebert. Nero is in serious condition at Christus Hospital, St. Elizabeth. Police say his injuries are not life-threatening. Once doctors clear him for release, Nero will be taken to the Jefferson County Jail. His bond is $250,000. Investigators say at about 6 yesterday evening, Nero assaulted his mother and grandmother at the home where he lives with his mother on Chisholm Trail in Beaumont and told them if they called police, he'd kill everyone. Nero drove away, returned at about 10 p.m. and left again. Police got information about where he might be, and officers spotted him at Kohl's. They say Nero sped away and led them on a 7-minute chase at high speeds along Dallin to East Tex Freeway, I-10, College Street, and Dallin again. Officer Hebert had parked his patrol car in the turning lane of Dallin Road near Ivanhoe, not far from Phelan, at about 10:45 last night. Officer Hebert was trying to remove a device from his trunk that deflates tires when a car runs over it. Witnesses told investigators Nero aimed his 2008 Dodge Nitro directly at Officer Hebert's patrol car. There was a violent collision. The Dodge smashed into the front of the patrol car and also hit Hebert, who was behind the car near the trunk. Metal, glass, and other debris littered the road for hours after the crash. Officer Hebert was taken by ambulance to Christus Hospital, St. Elizabeth, where he died. Nero was hurt and taken to the same hospital. Beaumont Police Chief Frank Coffin held a news conference late this afternoon to talk about the death of Officer Hebert and the capital murder charge against the suspect. Fellow officers and reporters listened to the chief describe the unfolding events of Friday night and early Saturday morning.
Our people were out there doing the stuff that they routinely do, and they do a good job of it. It's unfortunate when something senseless like this happens.
KFDM has obtained a probable cause affidavit for the arrest of John Wesley Nero on capital murder charge. Go to KFDM.com and you can read the entire warrant. Chief Coffin is at the Beaumont Police Headquarters tonight, continuing to monitor the investigation and to help console his fellow officers. 6 News anchor Bill Leger is in downtown Beaumont to talk with the chief. Bill joins us live with details from police headquarters. Bill?
Well, Ashley, as you can imagine, Chief Coffin has had very little rest over the past 24 hours. In fact, Chief, you were leading a news conference here at 4 a.m. this morning. I know you've been going nonstop today. We do appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us about Officer Hebert, the department, his family. And first, we'd like to offer our condolences to you and the department.
Thank you, Bill.
Few of us can imagine how difficult it must have been last night to go to Officer Hebert's family and tell them what happened, especially when it happens in this way. People are concerned about them. People have been praying for them. What can you tell us about your conversations with Officer Hebert's family?
Well, if you can imagine, it was god-awful. Just try to put yourself in a position to where you tell a parent that their child has been killed, and you see all of the pain that they go through at that instant.
One of your officers was telling us last night that they realize one of the most dangerous parts of their job is when they're outside of the police car and when they're in traffic. And in this case last night, Officer Hebert really had no choice, and he was doing what was necessary to prevent this person from hurting someone else.
Well, policemen frequently find themselves in a position where they've got to take action, even though they know that they're really risking themselves. And this was one of those situations. He had to do something. That person had hurt other people, and there's every reason to think he was going to hurt other people.
As might be expected, there is very little sympathy for the suspect in the case. 30 years old, living at home. According to his family, he had a history of abusing them, and that apparently, according to them, is what happened last night with his mother and his grandmother and led to the chase. I know they were here before 4 a.m. at the department, and you all were speaking with them. What can you tell us about this man's family and their thoughts?
Well, I didn't personally talk to the suspect's family, but I've been told there's victims all the way around, that this guy's family was very upset about what happened. They've offered their condolences to the family of Officer Hebert, so it's a tragedy.
Ashley, that's it for now. We'll be back in a few minutes with more from Beaumont Police Headquarters. For now, Bill Leger, KFDM 6 News.
Thanks, Bill. A number of officers remained at the scene of the collision on Dallin Road throughout the night, taking measurements, talking with witnesses, and taking the first steps toward building a case against the suspect. 6 News reporter Callie Desimone is back from Dallin Road with more. Callie?
12 hours after the crash, law enforcement officers, including some from other agencies, were going to the location on Dallin Road where Officer Hebert died. People who live near the busy stretch of Dallin also ventured out to see what happened and to offer their condolences.
A wall of red and blue lights.
It was so crazy. I've never seen anything like that before.
John Brady was trying to pick up his wife from work Friday night. He pulled out of the Green Tree Village apartment complex where he lives and turned onto Dallin Road.
You couldn't really see anything. I mean, they had all you could see is lights, red and blue lights.
Clint Lewis is president of the 100 Club. The organization works to help families of fallen police officers, firefighters, and EMS workers.
It just reminds me of the number of times we've lost officers in the line of duty through automobile-type collisions and accidents.
Lewis came here to see what had happened. That will once again trigger the 100 Club into action.
I just wish there was more that we could do.
The Beaumont Police Department is made up of veteran officers and young officers who are just beginning their careers. All are dealing with the loss of Bryan Hebert in different ways. This isn't the first time many officers have had to deal with the death of a coworker and friend. 6 News reporter Lindsay Kovacevic joins us live with details from police headquarters in downtown Beaumont. Lindsay?
Ashley, I am here outside the Beaumont Police Department in downtown. Now, if you look behind me, you see the police memorial. It stands in front of the station here. There are flowers that are set there in memorial and memory of Officer Bryan Hebert. People have been showing up all day to pay their respects. Now, Crystal Holmes is an officer. She's been here for more than 25 years. She says it never gets easier, that it's always painful when you lose someone you consider a brother or a sister.
To lose a brother in the line of duty is really a terrible thing for anyone to have to go through. And not just for the officers that work here, but for their families as well, because when they say good night or good morning to us every day when we walk out of that house, they're not quite sure if we're going to come home. So they're going through a tough time as well.
Officer Crystal Holmes says this is the first time many young officers have dealt with the death of someone they know and are close to, not only in their professional lives, but their personal lives.
They're reaching out to other officers, and sometimes that's all you can do.
It didn't take long for officers across Southeast Texas to learn of the Officer Hebert's death. Port Arthur police started showing up at Christus Hospital, St. Elizabeth, a short time after the crash. The officers guarded the suspect and responded to calls. Other officers from across the area also gathered on the steps of the Beaumont Police Department to lend their support for their fellow brothers and sisters in blue. KFDM News spoke with Officer Hebert in 2001 after a man grabbed his gun during a traffic stop. Officer Hebert had stopped a car in Beaumont. The people inside the car ran. While chasing down one of the suspects, he ended up grabbing the officer's gun.
I remember having my gun to my head at one point, once to my rib cage. He didn't want to go to jail, basically is what the whole thing was. And he repeated several times he didn't want to go to jail.
Officer Hebert managed to regain control of his gun and was not seriously hurt. Flags are flying at half staff at the Beaumont Police Memorial in downtown. The memorial pays tribute to officers killed in the line of duty. People have already started bringing flowers to the memorial site in front of the police station. Officer Hebert's name will be added to the Granite Star along with 16 other Beaumont police officers. The 100 Club of Southeast Texas met this morning at the sheriff's office to make sure the benefits will be made available to Hebert's mother and father as soon as possible. The organization provides families of officers, firefighters, and ambulance workers $50,000 when they're killed in the line of duty. Broussard's Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. And stay with KFDM News for continuing coverage of Officer Hebert's death. We have posted extensive coverage, including text coverage and web video on KFDM.com.
Flags fly at half-staff at the Beaumont Police Department Sunday in honor of Officer Bryan Hebert.
The night of the incident, a lady came up to me and said, he brought my children home two nights before this happened. So we're already starting to hear the good of Officer Hebert.
Lieutenant Ray Beck has served the Beaumont Police Department for 37 years. Beck says his friend and co-worker Hebert served the department gladly and protected the community without hesitation during his 10 years on the police force.
He was there to do his job, and other than that, you would almost always see Bryan with this little smile on his face.
A smile Beck says the department will always remember and has already begun to miss.
Several pictures laid out on a table at the Beaumont Police Department show Bryan Hebert from childhood to adulthood. Whether he was wearing a uniform or civilian clothes, Hebert's personality was the same.
He could always make you laugh, or, he was always there and always an inspiration. And
Holly Hebert is Bryan's younger sister. She says they were very close for their entire lives.
I always called him the world's greatest brother because that's what he was. He wasn't only my brother, he was my best friend.
Holly said Bryan loved his family, his police brothers and sisters, the community, and his 3-year-old German Shepherd, Apollo.
A church is a symbol to many, a path to God, an example of how to live your life.
I would say Bryan was one of those that was focused more on living his faith.
Pastor Chris Bottoms knew Officer Hebert for only a short time. He says Hebert was someone who left an imprint on anyone he met.
The legacy that he leaves behind, truly, it's a legacy of morality and ethics. We have men like that in short supply these days.
They came to remember and say goodbye to fallen Beaumont police officer Bryan Hebert. Many knew Hebert, but some Southeast Texans who paid their respects at the visitation service did not, but appreciated the job he did for the community.
I come to pay my respect for somebody who gives his all. He gives his whole life to see that the people in the community are all safe.
On Hebert's birthday, a memorial was placed at the site where he died.
This is Bryan's badge. His badge number was 201. And then the dog below represents his dog, Apollo.
Now this memorial serves as a reminder to everyone who drives by that an officer died while serving and protecting others.
Bryan was an awesome son. He was caring, he was thoughtful, he'd do anything for anybody.
You're watching KFDM 6 News at 6 in HD.
A senseless act of violence against any one of us is truly an act of violence against all of us. And we want to thank Bryan, and we also want to thank his family for the ultimate sacrifice that they've made.
Bryan was not only the greatest brother anyone could ask for, he was my best friend.
The sister of Officer Bryan Hebert and the Beaumont police chief speaking to a crowd of more than 1,000 during the officer's funeral. I'm Larry Beaulieu. Good evening.
And I'm Bill Leger. Thank you for joining us tonight. More than 1,500 people, including law enforcement officers from across Texas and Louisiana, attended the funeral of Beaumont police officer Bryan Hebert. The 36-year-old officer was killed last Friday when a suspect involved in a chase crashed into his patrol unit on Dowlen Road near Ivanhoe. We have a number of reports on the officer's funeral. 6 News anchor Ashley Gaston begins our coverage tonight.
One by one, the men and women in blue marched into the Beaumont Civic Center to honor Officer Bryan Hebert. People stood and watched while hundreds of law enforcement officers filled the seats. Speakers describe Bryan Hebert as a man of honor, integrity, and faith, who dedicated his career to his family and the community. In Beaumont, Ashley Gaston, KFDM 6 News.
Officer Hebert served 10 years with the Beaumont Police Department and was scheduled for a promotion to sergeant. He is the 17th Beaumont officer killed in the line of duty.
Hundreds of Southeast Texans lined the streets in various places along the more than 10-mile procession route. The route ended at the Oak Bluff Cemetery in Port Neches. It started in downtown Beaumont. 6 News reporter Ron Reynolds covered the procession, and he joins us now live from the Beaumont Police Headquarters with more. Ron?
Larry, the largest group taking part in the procession was the Beaumont Police Force. Dozens took the day off to travel the route, and a number of families did the same. They lined the streets from Beaumont to Port Neches, and workers even used their lunch hour to pay their final respects to Officer Bryan Hebert.
They were somber, wearing ribbons on their lapels, holding American flags, or placing their hands over their hearts.
We came to show our respect to Officer Hebert and to his family and the Beaumont PD.
Keitha Martell drove in from Nome with her sons and their fellow Cub Scouts. They found a place on MLK Boulevard in Beaumont to watch the procession and express their gratitude to Officer Bryan Hebert for his service to the community.
Anybody that has died in the line of duty, I bring my children out to show them what it is to pay respect.
Lois Trahan came alone. She waited on MLK to honor Hebert and to let his family know Southeast Texans care. She knows the sacrifices officers make.
I have a son that's in EMS, and I feel like, my life has been with first responders, and I feel obligated and to support the family of Officer Hebert.
In downtown Beaumont, office buildings were empty while workers were among the first to express their appreciation as the long procession exited the Civic Center parking lot. This was the start of the 12-mile route to Port Neches Oak Bluff Cemetery.
We're very lucky to have the protection of the police department. They protect our building just like everybody else is, but we just wanted to do something to give back.
Bryan Easley doesn't work downtown, but he brought his son to College Street to wait for the procession. Easley wanted to teach him the importance of paying their respects to those who serve and protect others.
I think it's important, especially at a young age. I want him to learn all about honor and commitment and what it's like to pay the ultimate sacrifice.
A sacrifice that cannot be repaid, but one that is worthy of honor.
Now, Officer Hebert will be honored here at the Beaumont Police Headquarters. His name will be placed on a memorial for officers who died in the line of duty. Hebert makes number 17. Reporting live in downtown Beaumont, Ron Reynolds, KFDM 6 News.
And the final leg of the procession was in Port Neches, where Officer Hebert was buried and where hundreds of people came to attend the graveside service.
Number 1, retire Officer Bryan Hebert's badge. Number 201, end of watch, July 8, 2011.
The officer's badge number 201 was retired during a graveside service at Oak Bluff Cemetery in Port Neches. The service began with bagpipes and a 21-gun salute. Hebert was a member of the Masonic Lodge. Members of the lodge took part in the service.
Law enforcement officers from a number of departments across the region, the state, and Louisiana came to Southeast Texas to show their support for Officer Hebert. 6 News reporter Lindsay Kovacevic explains they call themselves brothers and feel the same pain when one of their own dies in the line of duty.
Alvin, Rusk, Austin, Houston. Officers came from across Texas to pay their respects to one of their own.
We don't know each other, but there's nothing we wouldn't do to help each other out. We drove 5 hours, 6 hours to get here. I'd drive a day to get here.
One by one, officers from across the state walked into the Beaumont Civic Center and took their seats. They stood out in their different uniforms, but no matter the color or design, they all had something in common. They felt the same pain, The pain they always feel when they look at the casket of a man or woman in uniform who died in the line of duty.
I've been on the honor guard now for about 11 years, and I've attended way too many of these functions, these funerals, and it never changes.
Patrol car lights led the way into Oak Bluff Cemetery, creating a special bond that links all of these men and women.
About the best way to sum it up, it's an honor. It hits us all in the heart. It's really hard. I didn't know him, but he's a brother.
It's like a community. It's a family. We, honor ourselves as a family, community, and when we lose someone, it's part of our family.
A family, not only to other officers, but to the family of Bryan Hebert, trying to overcome the agonizing loss.
It's something to remember. It's a beautiful thing. This funeral, seeing everybody get together and pull together for this, for the family.
Together to say goodbye. In Jefferson County, Lindsay Kovacevic, KFDM 6 News.
The number of out-of-town officers was so large, some had to sit in the upper deck portion of the Beaumont Civic Center to attend the funeral.
Law enforcement officers from other agencies helped patrol the streets of Beaumont to allow officers here to attend Bryan Hebert's funeral service. 6 News reporter Callie Desimone has that part of the story. She's here now with details. Callie?
Well, Bill, some of the officers came from Louisiana, but most of the officers who helped patrol the streets were local, from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and the Port Arthur Police Department. Port Arthur Police said they're honored to help and know Beaumont officers would do the same thing if the roles were reversed.
Whether it's here in Texas or in Beaumont or in another state or another across the country, it affects everybody. It's a very strong brother and sisterhood amongst us, and when it affects one, it affects all of us.
Port Arthur Police say they're thankful for all the help they received from Beaumont Police dispatchers and others who allowed them to keep the streets safe while Beaumont Police attended the funeral of their co-friend and co-worker. Live in the news studio, Callie Desimone, KFDM 6 News.
Officer Bryan Hebert was a 10-year veteran of the Beaumont Police Department. He had served as a correctional officer before becoming a member of the largest police department in the Golden Triangle. 30-year-old John Nero is the man investigators say aimed his car at the officer. Hebert had just put down a spike strip on Dowland Road to stop Nero when police say Nero struck his car. Hebert was behind his trunk when he was hit. The officer was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Investigators say they had been at Nero's home earlier that evening after he assaulted his mother and grandmother. They say he told his family that he would kill everyone if they contacted police. Nero is accused of capital murder in the death of Officer Hebert. His bond is set at $750,000. He is expected to remain at Christus Hospital St. Elizabeth for another week before going to jail.
A memorial to Officer Hebert is taking shape on Dowland near Ivanhoe, where he was struck last Friday night. People have wrapped red and black ribbons around a utility pole. Red and black were Officer Hebert's favorite colors. Flowers, flags, crosses, and balloons mark the area near the pole. The tribute has become larger each day since Officer Hebert was killed.
And a reminder, you can stay with KFDM News and KFDM.com for continuing coverage of the investigation into Officer Bryan Hebert's death. Police are interviewing more witnesses and gathering more evidence. Prosecutors say the next likely step is to take the case to a grand jury.